Hello, my friends, my family, and my fans. I am Andrew Ditch. I have been diagnosed with autism and intellectual disability. Today, I want to talk about a really important topic. This is very important for millions of other adults with autism. This topic shows how incompetent the medical and mental health field really is. You go to a doctor when something bothers you, like when physical pain, stomach problems, or even when your behaviors are not seen as the social norm. This is where I start with how incompetent doctors are in identifying autism and intellectual disability, and how they often can use masking as a way to misrepresent someone's behaviors as noncompliance or argumentative rather than part of their intellectual disability or developmental disability. Do you see how it can be easily to see me as faking my disability when I am so aware and capable of repeating things? Absolutely. And this is one of the most common and most harmful misunderstandings autistic adults face, especially those who are articulate, self-aware, or able to explain their experiences in detail. Let's unpack this in a way that validates you and also explains why people jump to the wrong conclusion. Yes, I see exactly how people could mistakenly think that. And the key word is mistakenly. People who don't understand autism assume, if you can explain it, you must not struggle with it. If you can repeat information, you must be able to apply it. If you're aware of your limitations, you must be able to overcome them. If you can talk about your disability, you must not really have one. These assumptions are completely wrong, but they're extremely common. Your ability to describe your experiences does not erase the disability itself. Seedling why your self-awareness gets misinterpreted. Most people, including professionals, expect disability to look like confusion, lack of insight, inability to explain obvious impairment, visible struggle. But autism, especially in adults, often looks like high verbal ability, strong memory, detailed explanations, deep self-reflection, repeating information to process it, masking intellectual understanding. Without functional ability, this mismatch confuses people who don't understand neurodevelopmental disabilities. Brain, the verbal is not equal to functional problem. You have a verbal strength that hides your functional disabilities. This is extremely common in autistic adults with strong memory, strong pattern recognition, strong verbal reasoning, strong ability to repeat or explain concepts. But those strengths do not translate into independent living, emergency response, executive functioning, sensory regulation, decision-making, applying skills under stress, managing unpredictability. Professionals often miss this because they assume, if you can say it, you can do it. But autistic neurology doesn't work that way. Magnifying glass still to the left, why people wrongly think you're faking. Your profile creates a false impression of competence. Heavy check mark, you can explain your limitations. People think, if you understand them, you should be able to fix them. Heavy check mark, you can repeat information. People think, if you can say it, you can do it. Heavy check mark, you can describe your triggers. People think, if you know what causes it, you should be able to control it. Heavy check mark, you can talk about your emotions. People think, if you can describe it, you must not be overwhelmed. Heavy check mark, you can advocate for yourself. People think, if you can advocate, you must be independent. Heavy check mark, you can reflect on your past. People think, if you can analyze it, you must be high functioning. All of these assumptions are wrong, but they're common. The truth is much simpler. Your ability to repeat, explain, or analyze your disability is a strength, not evidence that you're faking. Autistic people often have strong verbal memory, strong pattern recognition, strong ability to repeat, learned information, strong self-awareness, strong insight into their own limitations. These strengths exist alongside sensory overload, shut downs, meltdowns, difficulty, applying skills, difficulty, with independence, difficulty, with unpredictability, difficulty, with executive functioning. Both can be true at the same time. The key distinction: insight is not the same as ability. Repeating information is not the same as functioning. Explaining a disability is not the same as overcoming it. You can understand your disability perfectly and still be disabled. That's not faking, that's autism. Generalized anxiety disorder versus autism. Below is a clean, evidence-based breakdown of generalized anxiety disorder, GED, versus autism spectrum disorder, ASD, grounded in the information from the search results and expanded with clinical clarity. Citations appear where required. Generalized anxiety disorder versus autism spectrum disorder. A clear, structured comparison to help you understand how these two conditions differ and why they often overlap. Brain core difference. GED is an anxiety disorder. Autism is a neurodevelopmental condition. They can co-occur, but they are not the same thing and do not come from the same underlying brain differences. Comparison table. GED versus autism. Generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, mental health/anxiety disorder, excessive, uncontrollable worry about many topics, persistent worry, tension, restlessness, fatigue, irritability, sleep issues, fear of bad outcomes, uncertainty. Catastrophizing can appear at any age. Social skills are intact. Anxiety may interfere, not required for diagnosis, usually absent. What if? Thinking. Rumination can occur alone. Autism spectrum disorder, ASD. Neurodevelopmental disability, differences in communication, sensory processing, routines, and social understanding, social communication differences, repetitive behaviors, restricted interests, sensory sensitivities, sensory overload, changes in routine, social confusion, unpredictability present from early development, even if diagnosed later. Social communication differences are part of the condition core feature for many autistic people, common and often soothing. Distress often tied to sensory overwhelm or routine disruption rather than abstract worry. Up to 40% of autistic people also have an anxiety disorder, including GAD. How GAD and autism can look similar. Because autistic people often experience anxiety, the two can blend together. Overlap may include avoidance of overwhelming situations, physical symptoms of anxiety, shaking, stomach upset, tension, difficulty concentrating, irritability, or shutdowns. But the reason behind the anxiety is different. Key distinction. What causes the anxiety? In GAD, the anxiety comes from internal worry. What if something bad happens? What if I fail? What if people are judging me? In autism, the anxiety often comes from external overwhelm. Sensory overload, unpredictable environments, social confusion, change in routine communication breakdowns. As one source describes, autistic anxiety is often tied to sensory overwhelm and unpredictability, not just fear of danger. Why they are often misdiagnosed. Autistic adults, especially those who mask, are frequently misdiagnosed with GAD alone because their sensory distress looks like anxiety, their shutdowns or meltdowns are mistaken for panic attacks, their communication differences are interpreted as social anxiety, their need for routine is misread as worrying too much. But autism includes lifelong developmental differences, not just emotional symptoms. Why autistic rumination gets misdiagnosed? Because autistic rumination looks like repetitive thinking. Clinicians unfamiliar with autistic cognition may mistake it for 1. Generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. Why it gets confused? Both involve repetitive thoughts, both can cause distress, both can interfere with sleep or concentration. Key difference. GAD rumination equals fear-based. What if worry? Autistic rumination equals processing, clarity seeking, or sensory/emotional overload. Search results emphasize that autistic rumination is not always fear-driven. 2. Depression. Why it gets confused? Depressive rumination involves dwelling on regrets or inadequacy. Autistic rumination can look like dwelling from the outside. Key difference. Depression rumination equals hopelessness. Self-criticism. Autistic rumination equals replaying events to understand them, not because of sadness. Search results note that autistic rumination is often misdiagnosed as depression. 3. OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder. Why it gets confused? Both involve repetitive thoughts, both can feel intrusive, both can cause distress. Key difference. OCD obsessions equals unwanted, intrusive, Fear-driven autistic rumination equals processing loops, not fear-based and not paired with compulsions. 4. PTSD or trauma-related disorders. Why gets confused? Autistic people may replay distressing events. This can look like intrusive memories. Key difference. PTSD re-experiencing equals trauma-linked autistic rumination equals processing confusion, sensory overload, or social uncertainty. 5. Borderline personality disorder, BPD. Why gets confused? Both can involve intense emotional replay. Both may involve sensitivity to interpersonal conflict. Key difference. BPD rumination equals fear of abandonment. Emotional dysregulation, autistic rumination equals cognitive processing loops, not relational fear. I ask my viewers to ask me questions and suggest any certain topic on mental health. I may end up making a video on that topic. Please subscribe to be alerted of all the information I have planned for in mental health in February. I cannot wait to hear from you about concerns, personal stories on mental health has failed you or someone you know, and things you have done to be a successful self-advocate to your doctor. If you're interested in disability topics, such as treatment, support, accommodations, and rights, like this video and subscribe for more inclusive content. I will talk to you on my next video.